Welcome to the Rundown Podcast, hosted by Don Costante, a sports and event management expert with over 25 years' experience. This unique podcast provides an opportunity to hear from some of the best professionals in the industry. You'll get valuable insight and perspective on what it takes to deliver authentic experiences, activate brands, and most importantly, connect with audiences. All on the Rundown Podcast. Let's get started.
Over the years, I've been asked, what's the one role on your team that has the greatest impact on your events? Well, everybody is important, I get that, but there is one particular position that significantly influences the outcome, and that's my MC. Now, with this being my first year podcasting, I thought what a great way to start my season than to talk about what makes for successful MCs. If you're currently an MC listening to this podcast or a director like me, grab a pen and a piece of paper because the information we're about to discuss is outstanding. Today's guest is Chris Miles. Chris has been a professional host for over 20 years. I have used Chris for my events for the last 15. I consider Chris to be the best in the business, not because he can pick up a mic and deliver the content with confidence, but because he connects with the audiences better than I've ever seen anybody do. He's more authentic than anybody I've ever seen, and he just understands what it takes to take an event to the next level. So what's exciting about today is that Chris is going to share his blueprint. For those MCs listening, he's going to give you valuable tools to enhance your craft. And for directors like me, he's going to give us the information we need to better prepare and develop our MCs to be successful. Sound good? Well, let's get this thing going. It's time to meet Chris Miles. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining the podcast.
Yeah, baby. Hold on for all your listeners out there. Let me hear you make some noise. Okay, I just thought I'd do that.
I got to tell you, I am really excited about the opportunity to speak with you today because I don't think there are enough podcasts out there or anybody that's really going as deep as we're going to go in terms of MCs and what you go through. But before we do that, I would really love to have you kind of take us down the path of how you became an MC.
Man, that's a great question, actually. To be honest, it first started off when I moved to Orlando, Florida. I was a traditional stick and ball sport guy. I played football at Ball State, and I always wanted to get involved in motorsport. And so I literally wanted to move down to Florida to start to get involved in motorsport. And so when I was doing that, I didn't have a job. I didn't have a job lined up in Florida. I had nothing. So my dad told me, you need to go get an Orlando Sentinel newspaper. So I went and got an Orlando Sentinel newspaper, and this is honest to God's truth. This is in 1990, February of 1990, actually. Get this big paper. This one, they were huge, I pull out the employment section. I open up the employment section. On the very back, a full front page, come work for Walt Disney World. And I was like, oh, my gosh. And that's literally what happened. I decided I was going to move to Orlando, Florida. I called Disney. I got me an appointment. I went to the place to sign up, and I became a cast member for the Walt Disney World Company at the Disney MGM Studios. And that's where I literally first got on the mic, was when I was doing what they call a host operator, and I gave a spiel in animation. And that was when I first got on the mic. And then about 3 months later, I went down to the walking tour, the backstage studio walking tour, and I did the special effects area. And that's when I got to perform. And that's when really the bug took over, because you're putting on this performance and you're on the mic and you get the reaction. And that literally, Don, is what sealed it for me, was to just kind of perform and be on the mic. But that's really my first foray into being an MC.
Well, I didn't realize that. All these years I've known you, I didn't know exactly how you got into it. I just knew that I liked using you.
Yeah, it was crazy. Well, here's something even crazier in regards to that. Back then, this is back in 1990. So March of 1990, I was working at Disney, and through there, I was there for about 2 years. Through that time, one of my buddies who we were always trying to spiel together during the backstage studio tour, the tram ride which took you through Catastrophe Canyon, was Kevin Richardson. And if you're unfamiliar with the name, Kevin Richardson is of the Backstreet Boys. He's the tall one with the mustache, and he's the older one. But Kevin Richardson and I were always doing spiels together back then during our Disney days. And that's also when the Musketeers with Brittany and Ryan Gosling and Justin and Christina, they were all there. We saw them through the commissary. I mean, they were just snotty-nosed kids, Musketeers, thinking they were the world. But that was during that same time, man.
Wow. and I feel honored to know you after you have had that opportunity to rub elbows with those people.
To interact with 12-year-olds. Yeah, you should.
So I really want to get into, I think, which would be very helpful is for those trying to become MCs or hone in on their skill set a little bit, is the preparation that you go through. So with all the years of experience, how do you go about preparing for an event that you're gonna host?
You really just said it already in the part of the question is experience. Because of my experience, respectfully, there's not a lot of preparation. The biggest key for, you and I, for example, is communication. And that is probably the most critical component and element that an MC and a director or anybody, a showrunner who's doing the program has to have, and that's an open line of communication. And fortunate enough, I've had you for 13, 14 years, I guess 15 now, 15 years, be able to provide me that information before I get to the event. Once I get to the event, the conversations we have at the event, being able to provide me that comfort level and understanding of what you need, what you're wanting, what the crowd is, what are we expecting. That's how I prepare. When I was younger, trying to figure out what I'm getting ready to do and no one provided me that information, I mean, it was a free-for-all, and I was just hopefully going to make people happy and not get fired. So fortunate enough, it worked out. But the biggest key of preparation is communication between director and MC.
So you talk about that communication, so that collaboration. How important or how much collaboration once you're on site with the directors do you need to have?
It's 100%. I mean, you have to be all in, fully engaged. Never do I go in with the notion, this is my show, I'm going to do it this way, and you guys just follow suit. Number one, that should never work. And number two, that'd probably be the only time I do work. So the biggest key is being able to know what is needed for the event. How much energy is needed. If it's a crowd interactive thing, are we going over the top? Do we have swag? What's our music director, our music tech going to be able to provide for me, which is also a key element. But the biggest key is understanding and knowing what the event is and what is needed out of you as the MC/host. Once you have that information, then everything else should just start to slot into place.
Well, I can tell you, I don't do an event anymore with an MC that I don't collaborate with that person, because it's important for me to find that right character, that right individual that has that spark, understanding that what I'm telling them, I know it's going in one ear and out the other, and they're going to retain what's important and do it their own way. So for me, that's important. What about music is so powerful, right? When you talk about being out on that stage or in front of people, talk about the importance to you in terms of music and collaborating with that audio tech that is with you.
I mean, this is a fair and unfair question because, we work with arguably and have worked with some of the best. First starting out with myself, I worked with DJ Irie from the Miami Heat, world-renowned DJ. When I first came on doing the NBA All-Star Weekend, he was there for me. So he was my guide. After we had a couple of years under our belt together, he and we were clockwork. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to work with anybody the way I work with Irie. And then along comes Tracy Allen. And Tracy is arguably the best at what he does for me. I mean, people can say, because he's not a DJ, he is literally a music savant. He knows the music for the mood of the crowd, my energy. He sets the tone. We're fortunate enough to have a Tracy Allen. Those who don't have Tracy need to make sure they have someone who is very well versed in music, but also understands how to play with the MC/host. And if you don't have those two components locked in, where it's a hand in glove, you could be in for a long evening and a long event.
Well, for those people that don't know Tracy, Tracy's actually my go-to DJ when I do events, and has worked with myself and Chris for many years. When you talk about music, I got to tell you, having somebody like Tracy, a good audio tech, that when you're talking to the audience and maybe you're mentioning something about all the single ladies out there, and then bam, here comes Tracy with Beyonce's Single Ladies. I mean, that's just amazing.
No, listen, I mean, yes, even musical chairs.
That's not even scripted. That's just him playing to real time.
That's right. And in fairness to those who are listening, trying to be like, oh, my audio tech can't do that with my MC. I mean, we've been together for 15 years. We're pretty much now, we're just connected to where we know what's getting ready to happen. As neophytes starting out, audio tech never meeting the DJ, audio tech never meeting the MC, and the MC never meeting the audio tech or DJ. It's really about communication. Hey, this is music I like. Here's what I do. And honestly, it's up to the MC to let the audio tech and the director know where their strengths are, regardless of how long you've been doing something. Say where your strengths are. Listen, I'm comedic. I'll kind of go off the rails here and I'll do this. So maybe I want some wild music there, but at the end of the day, it's just a matter of having that relationship connected. And once you have that, you're solid.
So shifting gears a little bit, in terms of the appearance, the attire of an MC, how important, is it to feel comfortable up on stage? I mean, with what you're wearing, do you have input? Do you usually give input as to what you want to wear? Or do you take what they tell you have to? What's your thoughts in terms of attire?
Traditionally, we've been fortunate enough, myself has been fortunate enough that the majority of my events are sports related. So we'll obviously have the uniform of the team or the theme. NBA All-Star, it's obviously teams and themes. Major League All-Star, we did the same thing. The Royals, you put me in Royals gear. So that's important, just to feel of the environment. That's key. Now, I always, even though I'm in that gear, I want to be offset. I don't want to look like someone else. I still want to have, if everybody's in powder blue Royals, I want to have the dark navy blue. If everybody's in dark navy blue, I want to have the white. You want to stand out as an MC and not just fit in, fill in. So that's one thing for me that you accommodate. Outside of that, if it's a hosting scenario where it's a suit and tie or a shirt and tie or a tuxedo, be that. That's what the event calls for. But you absolutely, as a director, want to encourage comfortability for your MC to be running around and doing whatever they need to do in the attire that they would feel most comfortable.
Well, I know
in.
that you're pretty vocal with me as to what you want to wear, so I think we always make sure to take care of you.
You've accommodated my wardrobe
Absolutely.
request, yes.
In terms of like rehearsal, over the years, as you've gained experience and, of course, trust with me and the types of shows that I do, put that aside for a second. But how much rehearsal do you think is necessary prior to going live? And do you think it's really that important to achieve the successful results that everybody's looking for?
Okay. You're asking a 20-plus year veteran now to say how much rehearsal time. So let's go from where we are today to where we used to be. Today, we sit down, we talk over the phone, we'll text, we'll sit down when we get there. You've explained it, we know it, we go. Boom, not a lot. Let's take the Major League Baseball All-Star this year in Cleveland. It was important for us to rehearse because we didn't have our standard guys, our standard people, our standard crew. It was outside crew. So I understood the need to rehearse there, and it wasn't that shabby, and we went through it. Anyone who steps up on a paid gig where you paid them to come in and they say, well, thank you for the opportunity. I don't need to rehearse. I'm go time when it's show time. Shut your mouth. Okay. If you're paid to be there for that gig. Do your job. Listen to what's supposed to be polite to everyone. You are not the show. You're a part of the show. And that's what I would encourage any professional MC to do when it comes time for preparation. And the director and whoever's producing the gig that they've hired you for most likely will have provided you some semblance of what the show is and what it's about. So you should be in good shape going in. Be prepared, and then be able to finalize any additional thoughts or any ideas that you may have to make the show a little bit better. But don't throw it in there on your own without having discussed it, because you'll look like a fool, and you can make the show look foolish, and that's certainly not what you want to do in the business.
So we spent some time now talking about preparation. I want to move into performance. And with performance, in your opinion, when you perform, how much is improv versus scripted? And I'm not talking about, I know it's important when you're doing corporate events, everything is scripted. I'm talking more sporting events, like the MLB, or during game days for regular games, whether it's college or pro or even high school for that matter. How important is it for a host to really be in the improv kind of mode versus scripted?
For me, that's who I am. I mean, I elevate off of the energy of the crowd. As you well know, you'll have to rein me in when all of a sudden we start going downhill, man, and we can't stop, and Tracy's got the music banging, and we're throwing out free stuff, and the crowd's crazy, and you got to reel us in. But it's everything for me being improv, because it's a natural thing. People know authenticity, and I think Tracy and I are authentic with what we do. We're very organic in the majority of stuff that we do, but yet he and I have a baseline. I wouldn't say a script more so than I would say a baseline, and that's something that you provide us through our show scripting as far as time restraints, how much time we have, what we can do. But as far as a straight up performance, my personal performance, I'm majority improv, and I'm just fortunate to be blessed with that innate ability to, go off a crowd and have some fun and take somebody on a ride that they may or may not have thought they would get there with me. And, we fortunately have come out on the other side smelling like a rose.
The word that you said in your answer, organic, I think is an important key element. I think those hosts that come across being organic tend to rise above and connect a little bit more than those that are scripted, for sure. Speaking of scripts, I personally, and I know you don't really care to have people holding them in their hands, but in terms of technology, if not using scripts, what's your thoughts on using teleprompters or an IFB or any other type of technology for that matter to help you to deliver content?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's key. I mean, it's a tool. I won't say it's a crutch. It's a tool. IFBs are necessary, but to be able to have that information on the fly that we're waiting on for a particular celebrity or player or someone to come out, and it's not them because they're going to be running late and so forth, and you're able to, provide me that information in my ear that, hey, celebrity A is not here, but celebrity B is. Here's the information real quick, boom, boom, boom. And then I can, reiterate that on the fly with no hesitation. Teleprompters, as far as a host is concerned, is key if they're also delivering information. If they're reading from a script to where you're back and forth and trying to act so natural as if this is something you've memorized, I mean, it looks so hokey. But to be able to provide that information in a common, normal way that looks more organic than not, I think it's a great tool and certainly should be utilized to the best of their ability.
Chris, when you use an IFB, the inner-ear device, how do you instruct the A2 to set that up for you?
Me personally, I want to hear a little bit of me and the show. I don't want to hear too much of me to where I'm echoing in myself and I'm talking to myself. But I personally like to hear the show to where I know who is saying what. Sometimes it's so loud, so to be able to hear that other person on the microphone is good for me, and it works. So I'm real happy to have that type of interaction of the show in my inner ear.
I think another important aspect to that, I think you also instruct them that when the director then punches that talk button, it cuts out everything but the director's voice in your ear, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, because if you got the show going on and trying to hear what the director's providing you new information, again, with what I just mentioned about a celebrity change or in the order or something of that nature, you can't have the show and the director saying the same thing and try and understand both. So, yeah, I personally like once the director keys, that it's just them.
So what's the information coming through the ear that you want?
Not a lot, because, if I'm in the middle of something, I just want to have that direct pinpoint information that I can go with and then later come back to. So if I know that, hey, Chris, if I look at the clock up front and we're down to 30 seconds and I'm getting ready to close out the show or that segment for the next changeover, I want them to say, no, stretch. And that's all I need. Not stretch how long, just no stretch, because I know you're going to come back and say, okay, we're stretching. We got to have you for 4 more minutes. Okay, great. Not a problem. But I don't need you. Hey, we got to stretch because celebrity A is not going to be here because celebrity B got caught on the train. I don't need all that. I just need, hey, got to stretch. And that's, you're good with that. But to be able to share that information with those who are listening, short is sweet and short is key. Just provide that MC just enough so they can keep it moving and not get distracted.
Impact versus quantity, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So talk about your voice. Talk
Absolutely.
about the voice and how you use inflection and tone to enhance an event.
That's a good question. I would say it's something that just came to me, to be honest. It was when I first started out and I didn't know how to grab people's attention. You see so many people, hey, what's up? And that's something that gets you, but that's almost like fingernails down a chalkboard. What I wanted to do was something just totally different. I would start really low, and I'm like, oh, let me use grit, that type of thing, because it just gave a little bit something different. People didn't know what this low rumble was, and it just, it became an organic thing. It changed over time. Now it's part of the show. It's how I'm able to get in and out of changes of the show, but I'm really using my diaphragm. I'm not using my throat. I learned over time that you don't scream and use your throat. Use your throat muscles, because that's how you end up losing your voice. It's really a situation of using the mic. I mean, I can go really low, and with the mic, it's going to pick it up because of our levels, and then scream. So I'm doing scream. It's the word scream, but I'm not saying anything. People think what it is. And because, again, the levels, it goes real loud. And so I really am able to protect my voice now. When I first started doing this, man, the second day I'd go out there, I'm drinking tea and lemon, and I can't breathe. I can't talk. I can barely breathe because it hurts just to suck in air on your throat, and it's really bad. But I'm now at a situation where I can go 4 or 5 days, do whatever we got to do, and I really haven't touched on my throat at all, and I'm not hurting, as bad as I could be otherwise.
Well, I think the biggest mistake out there that I've seen from, I don't know, events that I've gone to, and they utilize hosts, and I think to your point, it's based on experience, but they scream. I mean, they're just they're yelling into the mic. They're not controlling the crowd. They're irritating the crowd.
Yeah, man. I mean, that is a very fine line. I mean, seriously, that is a fine line. And I mean, even myself, to a certain extent, I'll know when I'm possibly touching that nerve of, getting too long and doing something, holding something or whatever. But yeah, you end up screaming. But This is also preparation. This goes back to, rehearsal. If you rehearse and you get your levels with the A2s and everybody knows what's happening, as soon as you get back for your show preparedness, you're ready. You're ready to go. And you should know what the levels are going to be, where you can go, how far you can go without popping the mic, and so on and so forth. And that's being prepared. That's the rehearsal part of it, and the importance of doing that. But yeah, man, if you start screaming, you're gonna lose that quickly.
Okay, so keeping that in mind, you've done a lot of shows, or you've been on the mic a lot. Something has gone wrong, hasn't it? There's been a time you've been out there, something's gone wrong. Talk about that.
Hey,
talk about an example of something that went wrong, and what happened, and how did you handle that situation?
Oh, you're a funny guy. So you want to go there, huh? All right. So obviously this is a Costante group scenario that we did when I was came in for the Royals Fan Fest. So over the years, as most people know, well, maybe people don't, Royals Fan Fest is an opportunity where we celebrate the Kansas City Royals baseball team the year before and getting them hyped up for the year to come. And so over the years that Donnie and I have worked together with NBA All-Star, the whole key was having swag. So swag, shirts, hats, bats, whatever. This one particular year, we didn't have as much as we had the year prior. We had promoted the blowout. At the end of every day, we'll have somewhat of a swag blowout. You don't want to miss it. But this was the final day. This was the coup de grace. This was the big kahuna. This was everything. And we threw all the swag out onto the center stage, and we're propping it up, and we're talking about it, and we're prepping the fans, and you don't want to miss it. And so everything's going good. All up until the time the music starts and Chris goes downhill with Tracy, music blaring, crowds having a good time, fans are getting free stuff, and we run out. And this is supposed to be an hour-long show.
It was,
and I'm done in 15 minutes.
Horrible, because as you mentioned, we had promoted over and over and over again that this was going to be an hour-long blowout. And so, as Chris mentioned, we piled all of the giveaways up onto the stage, and it was a massive pile. And this is an example of a host and an audio guy getting together and just getting crazy, and also an example of an MC that pops that IFB out and just wants to choose to ignore you because they're into the moment. In most cases, that's good, but as the pile continued to get less and less and less and less, we eventually had nothing, and we had 45 minutes to cover. So you want to tell them how you covered 45 minutes?
Oh, man. Okay, so, man, that's jacked up, you asking that question. But anyway, so we have 45 minutes to kill. So I take about 10 minutes trying to hustle back into the back with the mic high, saying, oh, man, okay, we can use this. So we found an autographed baseball. Then we found an autographed bat. There was a jersey. So we used autographed items, which I think we only had, 4 left?
Yeah.
But for 45 minutes, I had 4 items, autographed items that we had to use to try and appease the crowd. But the last item to give away was an autographed bat. I didn't know where to go for the crescendo of it because we had a competition with these two ladies on stage. And so I went old school. I just went, threw the bat up, and had them go hand over fist. The first person to cover the knob would win the bat. I thought it was ingenious, but you were none too happy.
Well, I will say it was entertaining. We were able to, or you were able to cover that 45 minutes. You took a situation where something went totally wrong.
Horribly wrong.
Yes.
Horribly wrong.
Yes, but again, was able to keep them energized and engaged, and it ended up being successful in the end, regardless of what I thought in terms of how you gave away the bat. But so ideas, Chris, you, in my opinion, one of the things, like coming up and filling that 45 minutes, you quickly came up with engagement ideas, performance ideas, and how you're going to keep the crowd into it. Where do you come up with your material? And are there specific resources that you use to gather some of these creative ideas that you come up with that you showcase on stage?
Well, that particular day, I didn't want to come backstage because I knew you were ready to kill me. So I figured
Right.
I'm going to figure everything out on stage for the most part to make sure that I wouldn't die. But I think, honestly, that was probably the only time you were really, truly ready to kill me. I mean, we've talked about killing each other before, but that one was truly, I said, oh, I think I blew this one. But where did it come from? Honestly, I'm fortunate enough, and unfortunate enough in certain examples, to be older than the majority of MCs that are out there. And so even when I started, I was older. And so I had life experiences. And when you have life experiences, you're able to relate to the young, the middle-aged, and the older folks, because my parents are older, so the older folks I could almost address as a son type of person. And then those who are middle-aged, I'm able to address them because we're going through similar things, at the time. Those who are younger, I have kids and nieces and so forth who are young, so I'm able to address them. So that really comes from having life experiences. In regards to creating the different elements of games and how to do games and everything, is you just rely on your instincts at the end of the day, Don. You're an improvisationalist, you go through improv. You just try and make the things that you've done in the past work, and the things you've done in the past that they've probably seen, you want them to see it a better iteration of it. And so that's pretty much what it boils down to, is experience, relying on that, and life experiences. That's pretty much how I've developed that strategy.
Well, it's successful for you. I will say, quick example for everybody. I mean, years ago when I brought you in for the very first Fan Fest, I remember I had a young man. I had a young man who was a host. He worked the entire season in the ballpark, and I brought him out to Fan Fest, and he got on stage and did a set, and I had you introduced and brought out onto the stage for the first time, where you addressed the world's fans for the first time, and I remember at the end of your set, I think the first one was just like a 40-minute or so segment. And what was interesting about you, you have the ability to connect with people. And at the end of your set, there were lines of people wanting your autograph. I mean, I had I had a host for the entire year, and he's on stage and he leaves the stage, but nobody's asking for his autograph. Here they see you for the first time. They don't know you. You get on stage and you connect with them through experiences and things that you've talked about. It's magical when you find the right MC who can do that and pull those strings of emotions. It's amazing how quickly they want to be around you, and they want your autograph, and they want to see more of you. So that is so true about the experiences, and your techniques certainly do work.
Well, and that's a God thing, man. I'm so fortunate to have the opportunity and the experiences that you have provided me over the years. I just can't take crap. I mean, it's literally a God thing, because as you just mentioned, to have those people connect, I mean, it's real. I mean, I share my faith with them, and I share who I am as a person, and my highs, my lows, my goods, my bads, and it's real. It's authentic. It's organic.
That's right.
Yeah, it's real. And I think people more or less appreciate that. The kids appreciate it more, because of the stories I can share. And but yeah, it's a humbling scenario when that happens, dude. I mean, seriously, even to this day, when it still goes down, people wanting pictures and autographs. I mean, dude, we're just Joe Blows, man, just having a good time and wanting to make people laugh and enjoy the experience that they came for, But it's humbling still to this day to have someone ask you for your autograph.
I would not know how that is.
You know what? I'll ask you next time.
Yeah, thank you. So we've gone in and we discussed a little bit about preparation, and we just got done talking a little bit about performance. Transitioning now to development, developing talent. What separates, in your opinion, a good MC from one that is extraordinary?
I'll say for myself is being fearless. if you are fearless in your approach and you don't care if you go down in flames or if you rise like a phoenix, you're going to be okay. Too many MCs today are younger. They're probably coming out of college, maybe coming out of some type of drama school or something, and it's their first gig, and the thing that they do not want to do is blow the next opportunity. So they want to make it spot on. They want to make it, the best thing they've ever done. And quite frankly, it may not be that good because it's robotic. It's not organic. When I first grabbed the mic, this wasn't my traditional means of business. It's not what I was into full time. So I could have taken it or leave it, or left it. I was an actor as well down in Orlando for several years. And so that's also how I did my acting. When I went in for an audition, it wasn't I had to have this job or I'm going to die. It was just having that ability to say, hey, whatever I give you is the best I got. And it's worked. For those who are getting into the business, I just encourage you, be fearless. Fearless and foolish are kind of two different things. Fearless can end up being foolish, because I've had that happen to myself, but definitely not being foolish to where, you're annoying, it's no fun, it's hard to watch, hard to listen to. Being fearless is taking this crowd to a point that they never ever thought they would see coming, and then just crash it and burn it to where they're like, oh my goodness, and we've had a couple of those moments that have been just absolute gold, just classic moments for us, so I'd say being fearless is what separates you.
Well, you can't talk about being fearless without giving it in an example. So, I mean, you got to talk about, I think there's no more shining moment of being fearless than in Houston when we did All-Star. Do you want to talk about Simon Says?
Well, yeah. So, with Simon Says, I mean, literally, folks, we have at the NBA All-Star, we have a full court, a full NBA court with risers. I think we had 4,500 seats that year in Houston for the center court. And throughout the day, I'm telling everybody I'm a world champion Simon Says player, and I cannot be beaten. I'm undefeated. And so I take on all comers. I don't care who you are. So that's the setup. So when we finally get to play Simon Says, I'm telling everybody, come on this floor. I don't care who you are. So most people are trickling down. And so then I'll start egging on the crowd, and I'll tell them, hey, I'll take on this whole arena. And we've had close to, 300
it's
people
scary.
on the floor.
It's scary as a director, as you're inviting 4,500 or 6,000 people down onto the court. How are we going to manage that, for one? And two, how are we going to get them off the court?
Yeah, so we have a great group of folks that help out. All the helpers that are around are
the interactive
actually other
team,
show directors.
We
have interactive dance teams and so on and so forth. Other directors from other teams are coming in, and they're actually just helpers for our show as well. And so the whole bottom line is this: through Simon Says, I first attack the kids, and I want the kids to be taken out. So I want them out first. I want to become a heel, the bad guy. And this particular day in Houston, we had our first person with a disability come out, and I went at them right away. I was like, hey, you're in a wheelchair. I don't care. Wheel your butt on out here, because I'm going to have you wheel your butt right on off real quick, fast, and in a hurry. I'm a pro. I don't care who you are. What's wrong with you? Don't care. And so the crowd, the air was just immediately sucked out of the arena. And I was like, oh, this is going to be tough. This is going to be tough. So we started doing our thing. We started doing, the Simon Says bit, this, that, and the other. And, I was letting some time pass, and we had kicked some folks off. And it was time I had to have this this young person, they were going to have to leave. You know, they had their time, they had their fun. So I went at them in a sense of, I said, okay, Simon says, put your arms out, you know, and unfortunately, this person with a disability, they could not do it. And I'm not laughing at all at him with the disability. I'm really chuckling in my head of thinking, what an idiot to go at this person like this. But that was my fearless moment. And at the time, I had been going downhill. We had to get all these people off, and here we go. And so they couldn't put their arms out. And I said, oh, you can't put your arms out? Get out. You're out, loser.
Yeah.
And everybody who gets off, they're a loser. They're going to Loserville. You know, I call it Loserville, and everybody's all mad. And I mean, I've almost been punched before. It's just crazy. I have not been physically assaulted with what I do, but they rolled off. And so they're now off. So I no longer have to deal with that scenario except for the crowd.
You don't have to deal with it, but I had to deal with it.
But you had to deal with it. So what happened?
So obviously when Chris sends off this person with a disability, my heart, you know, is has just sunk. And I'm thinking I'm going to be, one, fired. Two, I have no idea what's going to happen when I talk to the parent. And I'm thinking, you know, lawsuit, something. So I walk up and I immediately, you know, come over and I am about to apologize when all of a sudden the mom she has tears in her eyes and she comes over and gives me a big hug. And I look at her kind of puzzled and I said, excuse me, I'm so sorry. She goes, no, you have nothing to be sorry for. She said, I am so thrilled that you, treated him like anybody else, and you don't know how much that meant to him. And it means more than she could put into words. And I was like, holy moly, you know, it was an incredible moment. Not just for, you know, the fact that my job might've been saved, but more importantly, that this young man, was thrilled in what had taken place, and his mom was overjoyed that he was for whatever moment of time, he was looked upon as just like any other kid out there. And it was a magical moment, which definitely highlighted somebody like yourself being fearless.
Yeah, I don't know what came over me that moment, to be honest, to do that. But obviously that moment was more for them than it was for me. And that's why I say it's a God thing. You know what I mean? I mean, that could have turned out really, really bad. I didn't know that the woman, you know, again, they were off at the time. You didn't tell me until after that whole Simon Says experience was over with, that we had that exchange with the mother on behalf of the child, and it was awesome. And then they actually ended up coming back later for another deal, and I was able to meet them, take pictures, and we gave them more free stuff and this, that, and the other, and that was a cool moment.
So when developing young talent, how much time should somebody like a director or an organization give or spend with that individual to get them to a point where they feel like, you know, they're good, they're successful? I mean, they start off with just an inkling of potential, and they're raw, and you're not necessarily, you know, thrilled with them yet. But how much time should you work with somebody?
Man, I mean, that's the $1 million question, and it depends. I mean, it truly depends exactly on what you said. What are your goals? Are you looking for an MC or a host that we see a long-term future with, that has range, not meaning just to be able to MC an event, but can they host an event? Can they sing? Are they comedic? You know, what do they bring to the table? And if they have a multitude of talents that can assist their performance and the show's performance, then yeah, you might want to stick with them. If they're one-dimensional, monotone, no comedic presence, no improvisational skills, a dead red beat, they got to go. But if you do see potential, someone that, number one, and is eager to learn, willing to listen, take in ideas, they're willing to share their ideas, well, that's creativity. So that's somebody that you're definitely going to want to cultivate. But
the important thing, though, is you need to have, don't you, somebody on staff that has the ability to train them and take them down the right path.
Well, again, that's your job. Absolutely.
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm just saying, as we talk about, if someone's listening and they're like, well, I just hired somebody and I'm not sure how long I should keep them. If you don't have the skill set to be able to get them to where they need to be, that person's never going to get there.
No, that's right. And you may have a gem on your hand. You may have a gem
and you might.
And
if you don't have that ability, then you need to go out and find somebody to bring them in, not necessarily to replace you in your job, but just bring them in, pay them a fee to help train this individual, correct?
No, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, that's an absolute must. And again, it goes back to communication and collaboration. If you have those two elements, you're going to be fine no matter who you bring in, skill set wise. If you have that, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And you should know that when you interview that person, they come in and so on and so forth. So I think that.
So let's talk about that. Let's say you're writing a posting, Chris. You're putting together a posting. You're getting ready to advertise for your MC role. What are those qualifications that you're listing? You mentioned some of them, but I'd be interested. I'm interested to know what your qualifications are.
Man, it's hard to say, bro. I mean, definitely improvisational or comedic skills, if any theatrical work. Any acting work, or do you model or act? Because if you model or act, you at least know stage presence. So that's one. So if you're a model or actor, stage presence. Do you have comedic talent? That means you should have some improvisational skills. And then voice. At the end of the day, this is all about, if it's an MC interactive position that you're trying to secure, it's all about voice, in my opinion, and energy. So that's where I would go. And then one question I would ask, not just look for in a characteristic, is what's the largest crowd you've ever been in front of, and what was the event?
Do you think that matters?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you imagine just being in front of a little high school gym, and you're a DJ or MC, and then they come and they do a fan fest?
Do you think a large crowd would freeze them? Or?
Oh man, look, the energy is powerful. Look at what it did for us. Look how long we had been doing this, and you and I stood on the stage during the celebration and saw 800,000 people and that energy. Okay. We didn't see all 800,000. We saw a good 200,000, if not 300,000 in front of us. And we were like, whoa, what are we going to do with this? And we still made it happen. So even all the years that we have been together, we have seen everything. We never saw that.
Right.
And that's crazy. So I would absolutely ask, what's the largest? You don't want somebody that just performed in a little play, and they were the host of the play, and then all of a sudden they come out and you're going to book them for something that's big with a couple thousand people or a couple 10,000 people. You want to know how big a stage have they been on, and what was the event? Absolutely want to know.
What advice would you give to those who oversee MCs? So for myself, what advice would you give a director or show caller who oversees an MC?
I would say to let them entertain. You hired an entertainer. You don't want to bridle a bucking bronco. You want them to go out there and do what they do. Now, within reason. You want them to be well within the context of the show, well within the context of the crowd, but again, allow them to entertain. And you will have known that with who you hired anyway. You know what you're looking for. So when you finally, decide that this is the host or the MC you're going to use, you feel comfortable and confident. You can work with them, and they'll work within the structure of the show and what is needed. So you know that when you hire them. But once they're there, once they're ready to go on, the lights pop on, let them pop off. Bottom line.
I want to get your thoughts on a couple of things. Biggest downfall you see today with MCs?
I don't think the biggest downfall with MCs is they're young and they don't trust themselves yet, and that's somewhat lack of experience. But I think the biggest downfall is directors or showrunners or whomever, complain about possible talent that they have, but yet you get what you pay for. MCs, if they're going to be the show and an audio tech is going to be assisting that show, you must have those two elements locked down. You have those two elements locked down, you're golden. If you do not assist the MC, they will fail. I mean, it's just the bottom line. And I think that's the biggest issue I have with some of these other folks is the complaints we've heard over the years. Well, this person, they're this, they're that. Well, you get what you pay for. You pay for some talent, you're going to get exactly what you need for a show. And I think that's the biggest downfall that I see with MCs. I don't think they're taken as seriously as they probably should as far as what the talent of the event is. That's my personal opinion. Outside of that, I think you just have to let these young people go. You got to give them some rope to hang themselves, and they won't learn how far they can drop on that rope without hanging themselves unless they step off. And like I said, I've stepped off a couple of times, even as many years as I've been doing it, and we've had some blunders, but that's good. It keeps you humble and lets you know that you ain't who you think you are.
There's strategic risk, though. You're not going crazy.
Well, true. That's true.
And so I think there's, giving that latitude is important to allow the host to do the things that they think need to be done to be successful. So
absolutely.
How about your thoughts on multiple hosts though on stage at the same time? What's your, is that a good thing in your opinion? Do you like working with multiple hosts at the same time or not?
I do, and that's kind of a trick bag question, so shame on you. But anyway, I've personally wanted multiple hosts to where we could get some time, but that's where I could get some time off the stage, but that never actually worked out. Either I'm running through them like, water through a sieve, or they're just intimidated or so on and so forth. And it's not that it's purposeful, it's just we're a well-oiled machine, and, we just do what we do, and we just keep it moving and, catch up or you don't, And I will say that I think when we've had folks on there, as opposed to putting me out there at the same time, I'm instructing and coaching and really elevating and amplifying and getting them where they need to be to perform for themselves when they take their spotlight. However, we hit the golden goose with, All-Star, MLB All-Star in Cleveland with Ahmad, the voice of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then with,
Katarina,
the Sacramento Kings. To have the first female host that could walk lockstep with me and Ahmad from the word go, it was magic. She was absolutely amazing, gorgeous to boot. Just had this personality that was just infectious.
Well, she was fearless.
Yeah, fearless, absolutely. And so we had the ability to have multiple hosts at one time. They deferred to me out of respect, but I told them, hey, when we step on this stage together, we're all one. We're one unit. We just got to make one great show, and it worked. They did defer when needed to defer, and I stepped off when they weren't anticipating, and I kind of threw them out there a little bit, but they were magic. If you can have multiple hosts, two, if we had three, because we're all professionals, we've all been there before, but if you had two hosts that can play off each other within reason, not be obnoxious amongst themselves, but actually let it play within the context of the event. It's magic, man, and I highly encourage it. But it's rare. What we did in Cleveland was rare, and it was something fun to behold.
Well, I think it worked. You just alluded to it. When you have multiple hosts on a stage or performing, where they don't forget about the audience, because a lot of times when you get multiple hosts, they get caught up and wrapped into conversation and hearing their voices, and suddenly the audience is out of the picture, and they're like, "Gosh, these guys are just talking so much, and they're losing the connection with the fans." What you guys did, Ahmad, Kat, and yourself, you always put the fans first and connected their emotions to what was happening and brought them into everything that we were doing. So at no time did they feel disconnected. And I think that's a big thing.
You know what? And now to go back to your question of what do you see that's bad or something within MCs or whatever the question was beforehand.
Well, their downfall. What's the biggest downfall?
Yeah, the downfall. I would think that they don't know how to engage the crowd.
Yeah.
Keeping the crowd first, they'll start making it about them and saying stuff within the text, that's funny to them, but it's not funny to the crowd. Not being able to engage kids. I think that's the biggest downfall. My whole thing is all about the kids from the very beginning. Let it be about the kids. Because if you get the kids up, good, bad, or indifferent, the parents are going to stay. They want to see what kind of train wreck's about to happen with the kids. And for me, I have a crying, I know it's going to sound crazy. If I have a crying kid, we have a show. A crying kid is a show because it's just an emotional connection that the crowd's going to have with this kid. Okay, why are they crying? Once we find out why they're crying, now it's what are we going to do with it? And once you give them something to stop them from crying, then the crowd loves you, So a crying kid is everything. That's the golden ticket for an MC who knows how to use it.
Right.
But yeah, we love crying kids, so much so that you'll be on, hey, can we find a crying kid in the crowd? To where we brought crying kids up out of the crowd. So there you
go. For those listening, we don't go around looking for kids that are crying. It just happens.
Okay, we just make kids cry, and then we
just make them cry.
There you go.
You can't have this item. Shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about upper management for a second. We talked about giving advice to maybe the director that oversees the MC, but what advice would you give to an owner who might be listening or a high-level executive whose philosophy might just be very traditional and they're not really conducive to or liking maybe the fan engagement side of it? They want the game itself to be the entertainment. What's your thoughts on that?
Get with the times. I mean, if you don't figure out a way to provide fan engagement, positive fan engagement that would interact with the scope of what they're there for, to cheer on your team, if you lose them, they have too many choices today. Again, I talked about esports and what esports is doing and how you go in the fan interaction and crowd engagement with esports gaming. So if you don't get with it, you're going to get lost. And the most important thing you must do is have that fan interaction. It's supposed to be about them anyway. They're spending a lot of money to come see a product that may be good and or bad. And if it's a bad product that you put out there on a field, a court, a diamond, you better have something that can be engaging for them that they can at least say, well, at least the seventh inning stretch was good, or at least we got some free stuff or some of that nature, because, pardon me, that's what this is all about. And those who have bought these organizations or run these organizations, from a GM to a VP to an owner, let's not forget what this is about. This is about the fan. And if the fan is getting turned off coming to a game, they'll then watch it on TV. And as soon as they don't like what they see on TV, they're going to turn off the TV or go somewhere else. So my encouragement is, you've hired people to do a job. Let them do a job. Let them do it to the best of their ability, and let them help you get that team motivated, fired up, and move on to the next level of fan interaction. Because if you don't, there's too many options left in the world.
Well said.
That's my opinion.
No, I agree with you. It's nice to hear you say that. I hope those people listening that have those perspectives right now that or taking the perspective of being very traditional, pay attention to what you just said and understand that the fan engagement is so important. What about the individual that is listening right now who, from listening to you, they're making that determination they want to get on the mic? What advice do you want to give them?
Get on the mic.
Get on the mic.
I mean, I wasn't a professional when I grabbed the mic and did professional things. My first foray into the NBA All-Star Weekend, for example, was in Philadelphia that I mentioned. It was 2002, and I had told you throughout this podcast that communication and information is key. So my very first time getting to NBA All-Star was Philadelphia. I was on the Fleer court. That was the sponsored court. It was the official basketball card of the NBA, and they gave me the official three-point shot. That's what it was. Just, you're just going to have 24 seconds to put up three three-pointers and keep it moving. That was it, just like they do I think it was a minute, just like they do for the three-point contest in All-Star. And so I said, okay, what am I supposed to do? It's a three-point shot. Do whatever you can. What do I say? We don't know. That's what we brought you here for. I mean, literally, this is what I got. Philadelphia, 2002. So it just so happened that, number one, I'm an Indiana guy, so the Pacers are my team, and Reggie was my guy, and so forth, and pumping Reggie up, and being from Indiana, and being shooters and basketball players. I just started talking trash to anybody that would come up and didn't perform well. That was the very first day, just for a couple hours. The next day, I knew I was going to be there all day, but I happened to have a friend who was a Reebok rep, and she gave me all this Reebok stuff. But also, what was key, it was Philadelphia, and Allen Iverson was a Reebok player. And so I had all Allen Iverson gear, from do-rags to wristbands to shirts to his shoes, his signature All-Star shoes. So this is during the time of Rock and Jock. MTV Rock and Jock was going on at center court. We were just outside the main entrance to center court with the Fleer court. And I told them, if you want any of this stuff, you have to be louder than that court over there. Now, this is Rock and Jock, so this is really still at the height of MTV Rock and Jock and everything, Dan Cortez, the whole nine. And I had my crowd so loud that they would stop filming, come out to see what was going on, because they didn't understand what was happening. And they came and saw my crowd. We were probably 7 rows deep, people here, and it was just a three-point shot, and I'm giving away Allen Iverson shoes. It was the craziest thing ever, and that's just I made lemonade out of lemons. That's what I had. They didn't give me any information. I mean, let's put it this way. I was to give out the Fleer cards. I wasn't even giving out Fleer cards. It was, people were jumping out of line. If they didn't win anything, they were jumping back in line, man, just to try and win some Allen Iverson gear. They had all the Fleer boxes still. I just opened them up. People could take them. It didn't matter. We put on a show right then and there, and that started it. I mean, that started my deal. Just make it happen. Don't think you have to be a professional right from the get-go, because you're not. You're just not. Just jump on a mic. Just make it happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And be ready for the show that will go afterwards,
Thus the importance of good swag.
Oh, swag, man, is key.
Yeah.
And that's why I told you, when you first came on board with NBA All-Star, I said, hey, man, you know where the swag is? And you're like, yeah. I was like, my dude. So we never skipped a beat when it came to swag. Never.
All right, Chris, final thoughts?
Man, my final thought for you would be, number one, thank you for allowing me to be on the podcast. I think it's awesome. I think it's well needed. for the industry, not me speaking, but you, your experience. My final thought would be enjoy this moment. Allow this to be your teaching moment. For those listening, Don is an open book. Costante Group, with what he does, with his own business, with what he does with the Royals, he is an open book. You professionals who may have tons of experience, they have a few more years of experience than Don. Don't be so proud that you can't call him and ask him something, because it just might be that little extra bit that gets you, your organization, and franchise over the top. It may just be the information you need to secure a audio tech or an MC. So my final thoughts is utilize this platform that you have, Don, to the best of your ability. Share all your experience and everything that you have. Enjoy the moment. And, you know, those who are listening, certainly take him up, because it will do you some good. That's my final thought.
Well, I shall do that. I appreciate all the kind words. And more importantly, I appreciate you being a part of this podcast and sharing your wisdom and experience, and look forward to hopefully many more events with you. So thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Don. Thank you much. You know, there's only one way to go out.
Do it.
Let me hear you scream.
You know, it really doesn't matter how long I've been in the sports industry. I'm always learning. I'm always looking for ways to learn. And today was no different. Speaking with Chris, I gained so much more knowledge about the role of the MC and what it takes for someone to be successful on the mic. Selfishly, I learned that as a director, I can do a better job. I can do a better job preparing and developing people for that position. And there were a few things that Chris talked about in the interview that really hit home. Collaboration. The communication between the host, the show caller, and the audio director, and the importance of sharing information pre and during the event is so true. So important. And what about the use of the voice? Using the inflection and the tone to create the desired results. Too often people are just screaming in the mic. And using one's life experiences to connect with the audience. Wow. I mean, that is so common sense, right? Being authentic and real, people are going to want to connect with you. And what about being fearless on the mic? Understand the content, but deliver it your own way. Those were just a few things that really stood out to me when I was talking to Chris. And I hope during the interview, there were a number of things that stood out to you as well, that you'll be able to take back and implement moving forward. Well, that wraps up my first episode of The Rundown. And I want to thank Chris for being on my podcast. What an incredibly talented person to start with. I look forward to working with Chris for many years to come. Also, I want to encourage you, as you're listening to this podcast, please share with me your thoughts and questions. I want this to be a platform to help you. So send your thoughts and questions to therundown@CostanteGroup.com. And until the next time, I'm Don Costante.